Now the title of today's video is "The Odds Are Against You." Now the competition is fierce, but for you to succeed, you have to know what you are up against. But before we go ahead and get started here today, if you'd like to see your odds of becoming a millionaire, because knowledge and know alone will only get you so far. So there are two personality traits that are the greatest predictors of wealth. So I want to invite you to join our online community if you haven't done so already, and that way you can take our performance-based personality test to see if you have these two personality traits that are the greatest predictors of wealth. And you can visit us at millionairetest.alphalifestyleacademy.com, or if you're watching this video on YouTube, you'll find a link for it in the upper right hand corner, or if you're watching this video anywhere else, you'll find a link for it down in the resources section. We know that many of you come from different industries and backgrounds, but we're going to look at the example of real estate. Now, even if you work in another industry, you could take the principles that we're learning in real estate and apply them into your enterprise. Now, some of you may be familiar with the 80-20 principles that shows that you get that 20% of your efforts gets you 80% of your results, and 80% of your efforts also gets you 20% of the results, and vice versa. So if you look at real estate, 80% of agents are making 20% of the money. But if you're one of the top 20% of agents, then you're going to be earning 80% of the money. Now, as many physicists bring out, you may not understand it, but it is a law of science.
That the universe is knowable, and what one need not appeal to mystical, magical forces to account for things. Even if a day arises where something unfolds in front of your eyes that you cannot explain, just because you cannot explain it does not mean it is being driven by mystical, magical forces. It just means it's being driven by laws of physics that we know and you have yet to learn.
So as you will see, the 80-20 principle impacts everything on Earth. When it comes down to, let's say, pollution, 20% of countries produce 80% of the pollution out there. When it comes down to wealth, 20% of people make 80% of the money. So it impacts everything on Earth, even though that at this point you might not understand it. So the big money goes to the innovators. For example, Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listings, he averages $1 billion a year in real estate sales. Now there's entire brokerages full of hundreds and hundreds of different agents that don't do $1 billion in real estate sales a year. So instead of just looking at certain methods that make certain people successful, what we want to do is we want to look at the methods and the strategies that will give you the best odds of success. Now, part of my job working with executives from multi-billion-dollar companies was to help them to understand the numbers of their business, and that way they can outsmart their competitors. Because only once you understand the numbers can you pick the right strategy. So many businesses are ignorant when it comes down to the numbers. So this is why you have people promoting a certain tactic, whether that be a new social media channel or whatever. But unless if you don't understand the numbers, then the tactic becomes useless. Now, according to the National Association of Realtors, there were 5.34 million existing homes that were sold in 2018. Now, according to Homelight.com, there are over 1.3 million active agents in the U.S. alone, thus giving the average agent about 3.92 sales per year, and that's nationwide. But many cities are even less than that. So if you look at, New York, Los Angeles, and even Orlando. Now in Orlando, the average agent, if you divide them off equally, that would give the average agent 1.2 sales per year. But we all know sales are not divided equally. Now, according to an article from KellerWilliams.com, it showed there were about 420,000 agents in the state of California, with about 195,000 just in Los Angeles alone. And Homelight.com shows that there are about 35,000 active agents in Los Angeles, because just because you're licensed doesn't mean that you're going to make any money. In fact, most licensed agents never even make a sale. This is why understanding your numbers is so important. Now, I'm going to show you a short video clip from the University of Toronto where they looked at an in-depth study on productivity.
What you find is that a very tiny percentage of people produce almost all the output. It's called a Pareto distribution, P-A-R-E-T-O, and it was studied in detail in scientific productivity by someone named de Sola Price. It's a square root law, so here's the law fundamentally. If you look at the number of people who are in a given domain, who are producing in a given domain, the square root of the people produce half the product. So that means if you have 10 employees, 3 of them do half the work, but if you have 10,000 employees, 100 of them do half the work. Right, it's a very, very vicious statistic. And you won't learn about that in psychology for reasons I have no idea about, because you learn about the normal distribution and not the Pareto distribution. But Pareto distributions govern, for example, the distribution of money, which is why 1% of the people in the general population have the overwhelming amount of money, and 1/10 of that 1% has almost all of that, right? So I think it's like the richest 100 people in the world have as much money as the bottom 2.5 billion. And you think, well, that's a terrible thing, and perhaps it is, but what you have to understand is that that law governs the distribution of creative production across all creative domains, right? It's something like a natural law, and we'll talk about that more, but imagine what happens when you play Monopoly. You've all played Monopoly. What happens when you play Monopoly? One person ends up with all the money, all right? Then you play another game of Monopoly. What happens? One person ends up with all the money. It's actually the inevitable consequence of multiple trades that are conducted randomly. So if you take 1,000 people and you get them to play a trading game, you each give them $100, say, or $10, and they have to trade with another person by flipping a coin. I win the coin toss, you give me $1, you win, I give you $1. If we all play that long enough, one person will end up with all the money and everyone else will end up with 0. So it's a deeply built feature of systems of creative production, and no one really knows what to do about it, because of course the danger is that all the resources get funneled to a tiny minority of people at the top, and a huge section of the population stacks up at 0. But to blame that on the oppressive nature of a given system is to radically underestimate the complexity of the problem. No one actually knows how to effectively shovel resources from the minority that controls almost everything to the majority that has almost nothing in any consistent way, because as you shovel money down, it tends to move right back up, and it's a big problem.
So in any creative endeavor, they have found out that only a very small percentage of people end up getting the results. Now in this example, we're looking at real estate, but don't be distracted by the industry, because the same principles will apply into any industry that you're working in. So if you have 100 agents in your organization, 10 of them will get half the results. If you have 10,000 agents in your organization, 100 of them will produce half the work. Now, if you look at the top 10 agents in Los Angeles, the number 1 agent sold more than 188 properties, more than anybody else in the top 10, and at a higher price. Now, as you will notice also, the number 1 top selling agent in Los Angeles, or the number 1 agent in Los Angeles, it tops out at 500 properties. It doesn't actually tell us how many properties they sold. It just says 500 plus. Now, it would be an impossible job to make sense of everything. So if you're watching this on our website, you'll find a link down below directly underneath this video where you can get access to our entire web class, as well as a free book that we've provided you to that will go into greater details on this and show you everything that you need to know, all the numbers, everything, and as well as show you what we're going to do for you as well. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when we release the next video in this series, where we're going to talk about understanding the numbers of your business. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when we release the next video within this video series, which is entitled Remain in the Game If You Want to Win. Also, be sure to hit the like button, which will save that into your account. But and then if you're watching this on our website, you'll find a link down below directly underneath this video where you can get access to our entire web class as well as our book. So So again, if you're watching this video on our website, just click on the link down below directly underneath this video to get access to all of that. Or if you're watching this video on YouTube or anywhere else around the internet, you can find the resources down in the resources section of the video. But I had a blast recording this video for you here today. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye now.